Motivation. That is the theme of today's video. And a couple days ago, I put the first video up in our series of photography assignments that we're going to be doing. And this met with a very positive response, and I'm really excited about it. People had gotten in there and said, hey, this is exactly the motivation I need as a photographer. I'm really excited to get going. That makes me feel really good because I feel like we've got a project that's going to be a lot of fun to work on and that we're all going to grow together as photographers and as artists with our approach to photography. And I'm really excited about this. I also asked in that video if you guys had questions to leave them. You guys left some great questions. I'm going to address some of those. And I had some people that had contacted me that I think there's a little motivation required, and that's what I want to address today. So real quick, if you haven't seen that video, I will link it up at the end of this video. But in a nutshell, the first assignment deals with this idea of variations. So the assignment is to find something to photograph and then do it 10 completely different ways. Find ways that you can vary it up and do things that you haven't done before. So the idea here, theoretically, is by the third or fourth photograph that you take, you're going to exhaust all the things that you normally do with your approach to photography. And then after that, you're kind of in no man's land, and it's going to be very experimental, and you're going to have to challenge yourself to come up with ways to make that different. And it's going to be hard sometimes. And what we're going to do is collect all these into our little journals, just get them printed, paste them, put them in there. Allow yourself to be messy, and most importantly is that we're going to give ourselves permission to fail, and that is the most important part. If we don't make mistakes, we're not going to learn from them. There's going to be some bad work involved. I'm going to submit some very bad work, I can guarantee you. But that's the point. If you're not seeing bad work, then you've got nothing to learn from. You're not pushing yourself hard enough, and I think that is the big key here. So real quick, just a couple things, because there were some questions and a little bit of uncertainty around these. I tried to design these on a very mature level that's really going to push and challenge people, including myself. And I had one individual, and I'll come back to this in a minute, but he had sent me an email and said, well, you provide something that's on a college level that I just don't have time for. And I used to teach college, and it certainly is that. But just to be clear, what I want to do with these, it's really hard from my perspective because I make videos and I put them online. So it is not a college course. I'm not going to grade you on these. There's no deadlines. And the reason is some of you watch this show and you watch it very much in the moment. You follow along, and you're fairly current with all the videos that I do. So you're doing these alongside as they're happening. But there's another contingency of people who don't know about the show right now, and they'll discover it in the future. And I don't want these to be irrelevant. And I want them also to be something that if you feel like later on, even though you've already done them, if you feel like you need just a creative charge somewhere, that you can come back to these and do them again. So I don't want them to date themselves. I want them to stay very relevant no matter what. So that's the whole idea of the notebook. That's the whole idea of really not doing deadlines. You really are going to be very self-motivated with these. You're going to have to be. But that's the way I'm going with these because there's no way to do it any other way. Now, the other thing, though, is I have not announced a social component to this yet. I've kind of hinted at it, and I've asked you guys what you use, and I've talked about Tumblr and some things like that. We're not there yet. The cart is definitely before the horse if we start going there. I had an email from another individual who said, I love this idea. I did some work like this a year ago. Where do we submit it online? Well, first of all, you're not submitting it. There's no grade. There's no contest. We will have places where you can put it to hopefully get feedback and stuff like that. But we're not there yet. We haven't done the work. And I'm very intentional about that because this is not a promotional opportunity. This is a learning opportunity. And so I will get to that. We just haven't done it yet. So anyway, a couple questions that people have asked that I just want to address real quick. There was a question, it was one of the first ones that was asked actually. Someone said, what lens would I recommend for a beginner? My response to that would be whatever is available. What do you have? That is the most important answer to that question, especially if you're a beginner. I have set these up so they're not gear-centric. There's nothing to buy. You should be able to do these with whatever equipment you have, and I think that's important. Now, in photography, you can't say that equipment's completely irrelevant because you have to have the camera to take the picture. You have to have the tool. So it is relevant, but I don't want them to be the focus. I want them to be the secondary. The primary here is learning how to think and improve artistically and creatively. That is the important part. Another individual had asked me if they said they'd recently gotten into photography and because they had a drone, and so they were taking aerial stuff, but really the only other camera they had was their phone, and their cell phone. And so I said, well, you could shoot these on a drone. You can shoot them on a phone. It sounds like Dr. Seuss all of a sudden. But yeah, I will not eat Greek eggs and ham. You can shoot them on a drone. You can shoot them on a phone. If you're a caveman, you can shoot them on a bone. Whatever works for you guys. And use what's there. In fact, I think actually using a phone is a challenge. I did the video on box cameras because I wanted to talk about challenges. That wasn't an assignment. That was just an approach that you can use, and it's an approach I will use to some of these. But I think that opens up possibilities when, again, further restrictions are going to start creative thinking. And how do I get what I want to have in the final image? And I'm limited, so how do I make it work for me? And so those things are really important. So another very practical question I had was someone had asked me about printing. Now, I have an inkjet printer, and I know that not everybody does. So if you don't, obviously buying one would be important, but I don't want you to have to buy anything for any of these. Probably the cheapest and easiest way to do it is just go to your local CVS or drugstore or grocery store. The quality is not important. These are going in a sketchbook. They're going in a notebook. You're going to write on them sometimes. The quality, as long as it's okay, you're fine. Obviously, printing them out at home is easiest, but if you can't afford a printer or don't have one, just do something like that. There are places online you can get them printed. Somebody had said to me they wanted to do all their journals on Blurb. Don't do that. I would highly recommend against that. And the reason is this. Blurb is going to be really expensive, and it's going to take forever to get your book turned around. You're going to have to do layouts. It defeats the purpose of being messy, allowing yourself to fail, and allowing that permission. So literally, like the notebooks that I have, I spent $1 on at the grocery store because I want to feel comfortable messing them up. And that's what I would recommend for you guys. So the last thing I want to say about this is I want to come back around to the guy who said, you have this college level course, and I don't have time to do it. And this is, I think, where the motivation is needed a little bit. And I'm not trying to call this guy out for saying that at all. I completely respect that. I know that some people are very busy. Some people have multiple jobs. Some people have kids. They have a lot of responsibilities in life. But it's going to come down to this, and this is going to be probably a little bit harsh to hear on some level. If you can't make the time, I can't help you. Most of success, I can't remember who said this, 80% of success is showing up, and there is a lot of truth to that. If you want to be a photographer, make photographs. That's all there is to it. It's very simple. There's no other way to say that. If you want to be a photographer, do the work. And as far as time commitment goes, these are set up. Yeah, I hope that they're on the maturity level of being on a college level, but at the same time, I know everybody gets busy, but even in my weeks when I'm really busy, who's to say there isn't 30 minutes or an hour in that 1 week that you can carve to set aside to use your cell phone and take 10 pictures of one subject? And just think about it for a little bit. 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. But you have to show up. You have to do the work. And if you don't have time this week, then make it next week or find the next day off you've got or whatever that is. But there can't be excuses. And that's the hardest thing to talk about when you're talking about motivation. Because I think we all do it. I mean, equipment's a big one for photographers. You're like, well, I would like to do this picture I've got in mind, but I don't have the right lens, or I need a different flash unit, or I need a full frame DSLR, or whatever. There are a million excuses. Go shoot the thing on your phone and get it done. Show up, do the work, make it happen. That's all I can say about that. There are always a million excuses because the excuse is easier than doing the work. Work is hard, and this happens with me a lot of times. I'm speaking very much from the heart here. I mean, because it even happens with these videos sometimes. I get afraid, what happens if I put a video up about photography that people make fun of? Or what happens if they think I'm an idiot? Or what happens if they just don't like it? Or what happens if they're bored? And the same thing happens when I shoot photos. It's like, well, what if I put this in my portfolio and somebody thinks it's lame? Or that can creep into your head too. But you can't, all of a sudden that's your mind coming up with an excuse not to do something. So what I'm trying to say here is don't be afraid. Don't come up with excuses. Get out there and do the work and make the time. If you guys enjoyed this video, please remember to like it, share it with your friends, and as always, subscribe to this channel for more. And if you haven't seen the video for the first photo assignment, I will link it up here somewhere or in the show description, depending on where you're watching this. Until the next video. I'll see you guys then. Later.